Board of Commissioners Finance meeting. I'm gonna call the meeting to order right now. Would you please call the roll?
Rahman,
Present.
Long,
Here.
Powell,
Here.
Cabell.
Here.
Smith Charles,
Present.
Wipert,
I'm here.
Hoffman,
Present.
Markham.
Here.
You have a quorum?
Yeah.
Next up is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would everybody please stand and join me?
I joined this meeting.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we have approval of the previous minutes. I need a motion. Commissioner Smith Charles, supported by Commissioner Wipert. Any changes? Let's prompt the vote, please. Yeah, all of these. Okay. We can do it yet. Hurry, cut the grass. Okay, motion carries. Next, we have approval of today's agenda. Does anybody have any changes or anything? Moved by Commissioner Long, supported by Commissioner Hoffman. Seeing no changes, I will prompt the vote, please. Next, we have our first public comment for anyone who wishes to address something on today's agenda. Is there anyone who wishes to address this board at this time? Seeing no one, I will close the first public comment. We will have one again at the end of the meeting. All right, next up, we have item 7, which is an appointment of the Deputy Chief Financial Officer. Moved by Commissioner Rahman, supported by Commissioner Wipert. So,
Official title.
yeah, just please come to the end and
Yeah.
I think we all know you guys, but introduce yourselves again and
Sure. Madam Chair, Brian Loeffler, CFO, so thank you.
Cheryl Johnson.
Week 5.5. And as April always says, I'm still here. And I'm having a great time, so it's been really great to meet all of you again and also everybody. But I'm actually here on behalf of the county exec to present to you Cheryl Johnson as an appointee to the deputy CFO position. I think most of you know who she's, the role that she's played on an interim basis. And going forward for your consideration is to move forward to appoint her as the full-time deputy CFO. Not saying that you didn't work full-time, but
Budget.
but
we were here, we saw it.
But if you wouldn't mind, just for those, just a couple comments, because within your packet is her resume as well.
Thank you. First, I would like to say I really appreciate the opportunity to do this.
Okay.
I've been in government finance for 30 years and in a lot of local municipalities, some of your local municipalities, and kind of working my way up through the ranks. And you can see I started in Pontiac, had a very long tenure in Pontiac. Pleasant Ridge, Ferndale, Allen Park, Plant Moran, just a lot of places to prepare me for the things that I face here, and I just appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell.
I just want to say thank you for always assisting us commissioners through a lot of the questions and things that we had. I know I haven't personally interfaced, but I know you've helped a lot of us understand a lot of stuff. And it's great to always, you started in Pontiac, so thank you. And now that I know that, I may bug you a little bit for some stuff with city stuff, so thank you so
I
much.
got a little bit of history in Pontiac.
Oh, I see, so thank you so much, though. Thank you.
Anybody else? Commissioner Rahman.
Just congratulations, super excited. I think this is a great appointment and really looking forward to continuing to work with you in the capacity.
Anybody else? So in your time in Pontiac, some of that was in the emergency manager.
Yes, all three of them.
Yeah.
Damn.
So that you come to us with a lot of historical knowledge on what's happened in that community and how that relates to Oakland County and the state of Michigan and all of that. So I think we're really lucky to have you. I've had the ability to work with you in some meetings and, here and some of the other committees that we're on together. And I appreciate you and I'm glad you're gonna be our new deputy, so.
Thank you so much.
Commissioner Smith Charles.
I apologize for not indicating before, but I want to vote no, only because I am a big proponent of us hiring and supporting people within. Is it Leffler?
Yes.
I think he's doing a fine job, and I'm just, on principle, I like us to be able to, I just don't know why you're technically not our CFO, because you've been coming and doing all the work. That's why I was like, wait a minute, what? But no, I'm glad you're here. I just want to go on record to say that perhaps that would have been nice too. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, seeing none, let's prompt the vote on moving the appointment of Ms. Johnson to Deputy Director of Finance. Deputy Chief Financial Officer is the correct title.
I think I've already been called DCFO.
Yeah, deputy CFO.
Deputy CFO. Okay,
Thank you.
I did not get,
No, I'm not getting it.
Vaughn,
Yes. Should I say
Markham?
reducted?
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding. Reducted, yes, I'm kidding.
Smith Charles,
Yes.
Cabell.
Yes.
You have 8
Thanks,
yeas, 0
Cheryl.
nays.
okay, motion carries,
I'm so
thank you.
sure I
Thank you so much.
refreshed. It was only some of us didn't get it. Okay, refresh.
Nice to see you again.
Okay.
All right. Next, we have item 8, a presentation on the Tri-County Region Broadband Assessment. Moved by Commissioner Smith Charles, supported by Commissioner Powell.
Yes.
Do we have someone who's gonna
Chris
be
Green.
presenting this?
We have two speakers joining us virtually, Jeff and Chris.
Okay, Jeff.
Hello, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
But no.
Shall we proceed?
Yes, please do.
Very good. Well, thank you to Commissioner Markham and everyone for having us and allowing us to present the findings of this project that we did with Oakland County and for Oakland County and some of your neighboring counties as well. So I'm Chris Green Hutchings. I'm the program manager for the Michigan Moonshot Initiative here at Merit Network. And I have two of my colleagues on the call here with me today. I have Jeff Weinberg, who's also going to be presenting some of the findings, and my colleague Steve Heilner, who is the membership engagement manager that works with Oakland County and all of our members in Oakland County. So glad they could join me today. Jeff, could you share the presentation? That would be wonderful. So,
Yeah, I need somebody to just provide the capability to share because it looks like it's blocked on my my side. If that's possible, that'd be great.
Oh, you're my.
Go next to Jeff's name. Jeff, just give us 1 second.
Yeah, sure. Technology, right?
yeah, maybe I will our first 2 slides are an overview of Merit Network and our Michigan Moonshot Initiative. So I think I'll just speak to those and then we can jump over to the agenda. So Merit Network is the longest standing research and education network in the United States. We've been around since 1966. We are an independent, statewide nonprofit organization. You may not have heard of us before because we serve a very specific market segment. We provide networking services, including internet access to a very narrow market space, which is libraries, the education sector, local governments, and other nonprofits in the state. So just to be clear up front, Merit does not provide internet access to residents or the commercial sector in general. So We have, however, since we've been around since 1966, we've spent a lot of time working with nonprofits and community organizations to build the networks that were needed to serve them. And so that's how we created the Michigan Moonshot Initiative. So maybe we'll just step back for a minute and I'll talk through this agenda and then I'll tell you just a little bit about the Michigan Moonshot. After that, we'll talk about, why did we start this project and why did Oakland County choose to participate? We'll review the scope of the work that we did together, talk about who helped us along the way, and then Jeff's going to jump in and dive into just some of the findings. We have a huge top line report that hopefully many of you have seen with all of the details in it, but we're just going to highlight a few today. And then we'll talk about some recommended next steps that we think that Oakland County could pursue to diminish the digital divide for residents in Oakland County. Next slide, please. So I spoke to you a little bit about Merit. We are a 501c3, and this map on this page shows our governing organizations. So these are the nonprofit public universities and colleges around the state. That is our board. They make our decisions. Next slide, please. So back in about 2017, our executive leadership team came to the realization that during the day, almost all of the intermediate school districts in the state get their internet access from us, but we've since come to realize that almost 30% of the students statewide are unable to get internet access at home when they go home at night because it's just simply not there. And once our leadership team came to that realization, they said, we have to do something about this. Even though we don't serve residential customers, there must be a way we can help. And that is how Merit Network's initiative, the Michigan Moonshot, began. And we've kind of evolved over since 2017 on what we do, but the work we've been doing with Oakland County specifically has been about understanding the current state. Who has access to the internet today? Who does not? And why? Why are the folks who have been left behind getting left behind? Next slide, please. So we were approached after the Tri-County Summit, decided that broadband access was a priority for last year. And we attended a couple different meetings of a task force for the Tri-County Summit and presented, the work we've been doing at this point. We have surveyed over 60% of the communities in the state we've offered our survey to them. The Southeast Michigan Council of Governments also urged all 3 counties to endeavor to improve the data they have about where folks have access to high-speed internet and where they do not. So we had a couple meetings with Oakland and Macomb and Wayne counties together, and these were the goals that group articulated right at the outset of this project. We wanted to maximize eligibility for upcoming grants to expand access to broadband internet. We want to identify who doesn't have service today. We also wanted to figure out, are there areas where people have some internet today, but it's just not fast enough? We call that underserved. And Jeff's going to dive in a little bit into that later. The counties also wanted to have some good data that was solid and research-based that they could use to challenge the data that's been provided by the federal government and the state. We wanted to identify issues that are contributing to the digital divide so that those could be prioritized for future mitigation. We wanted to understand really what's the current state? Where is the infrastructure today? Where does it not exist, or where is it inadequate? So that can play into infrastructure planning on the whole for the region. And finally, we wanted to know, are there current internet service providers that have reliability issues in general, perhaps, or perhaps in specific geographies? So those were the goals we had at the outset of the project. Next slide, please. So what did we do? We had 3 phases of the project. We had a rather extensive planning phase. There was the execution phase, which sometimes we might call the survey phase, where we were gathering the data, doing the data collection. And then there was an extended period of time during which our team of researchers was analyzing the data that had been collected. Just to dive in a little bit on this, a key part of the planning phase was that we engaged with community partners. So we identified nonprofits and social service agencies and entities in the Tri-County area that had an interest in closing the digital divide. We did some one-on-one outreach for some of them. We invited all of them to a couple different webinars so that they could learn about this project and how they might help us get the word out to recruit residents. We continued to engage with them by sharing materials throughout the project. During execution, we did presentations, and so did, and I should say we, it's not just Merritt, right? So Patty Dibb was going out making presentations. Her peers at the neighboring counties were doing the same. We would go to individual townships, Michigan Township Associations, going out and meeting with different community anchor institutions to try to get their interest and have them help us spread the word to residents. We also had a media campaign. We did postcard mailers. We distributed bookmarks to libraries. We had yard signs up at all the metro parks. Perhaps you saw some of those, and also Facebook ads. So during that time of execution phase, we met weekly to review a dashboard that was showing us where were we getting residents responding to our survey and speed test if they had internet access, and where were we not. And then we would kind of tweak our outreach strategy based on where we were seeing participation and where we weren't. So we closed the survey in the fall, and then we started the process of removing data that was, maybe folks who were outside of the boundaries of the county, for instance, or folks that had taken a speed test on their cell phone instead of their home internet. Then there was merging of data that had been collected from folks who have internet today and folks who did not have access to the internet. And then we have a whole team of folks that does a review of that. So we have social scientists, we have a data scientist on the crew, we've got 2 geospatial information specialists, as well as our director of research that jump in there. And together, we all work together to develop our deliverables. And we're just giving you a peek today, but as I mentioned, there was a top line report. Jeff, do you remember how many pages are in that top line report? It's a pretty big thing.
Yeah, without the appendices, it's about 70 pages, but we've got individual maps for each of the different townships that were also provided.
Yep. And that may be especially of interest to the commissioners. If you want to see what service is looking like in your individual township, that there are appendices to this top line report that show that very clearly. Next slide, please. So who did we work with at Oakland County? So on the right-hand side there, you see all the folks from Merritt Network. So you can see me and Jeff, but we had a lot of our colleagues working with us on that. We worked very closely with Patty Dibb while she was there. Mr. Andrews has come in right at the end and been very gracious about stepping in and helping us get everything across the finish line. Sarah Moreau has been invaluable, not only to the success in Oakland County, but also sharing excellent ideas and strategies that the other counties have mirrored. You got a real gem there with Sarah. Joe LaRussa was active as well, and is very savvy when it comes to broadband. And Rod Davenport, again, kind of came in at the end there as we were trying to get engaged to wrap it up, and has been helpful and knowledgeable, especially in receiving all of the GIS data that was generated and knowing just what to do with that. So those are folks that we worked with. Next slide, please. And I'm going to hand it over to Jeff here in a minute to just talk about all these, but just to reiterate, these are just a few of the key findings. And I think that if you get a chance to look at that top line report, even just perusing the list of visualizations that's in there, I think that you'll really get a good sense because there's so much to see that really helps you understand the data that was collected. It's very rich. So Jeff, please take it away.
Yeah, I would just add it's quite in depth. So we're just really scratching the surface when it comes to the data that's available within Top Line. So I highly encourage the group to take a look at the details within the report when you have time. So let's talk about some of the results that we noticed from the speed test that the residents had taken. A couple of things I wanted to point out is the FCC has just, through a 3-2 vote, had approved the increase of the broadband internet benchmark. When we started this project, it was around 23 Mbps download speed, and it was 3 upload speed. Just recently, those numbers have been increased to 120, and that's really where our benchmark was when it came to identifying the types of speeds that the Tri-County residents were receiving. So over here on the right-hand side, you can see the results from the folks that took the speed test. Currently the internet service providers have been providing a pretty solid download speed. Download speeds are typically representative of streaming services or just being able to do or view websites. But one of the things that we noticed in the report immediately was the shift or the low numbers when it came to upload speeds. So typically the standard is about 20, and most of the folks that were taking the speed test were, this is the median, they were well below that particular 20 Mbps upload. And those particular, the upload speed is really important when it comes to doing work from home, because Zoom, takes, has a lot of, screens that, for example, like we're sharing this presentation right now, or, all the video that's going through. So it's really important for folks that are working at home, as well as those users that actually upload data content as part of their jobs, media companies and employees. So that is that's definitely one of the highlights when it came to speed. There's a lot of other interesting data that's in the Top Line report, specifically to the internet service providers and their actual specific numbers for each of the different communities. So when you get a chance, please take a look at that detail.
Okay, Mr. Weinberg, I'm going to ask you to move along as quickly as you can. We set aside about 10 minutes for your presentation, and so
okay.
And kind of narrow it down. And
it's 45.
All right. All right. So yes, thanks for that. I will speed it up.
Data people.
So here's a sample of one of the maps that we have within the Top Line report. I guess based on what I just heard, I'm probably not going to jump into detail here, but this is just one example. We've got maybe 20 maps that all reviewed the data in different ways, and I highly encourage everybody to take a look at the visualizations. They're very user friendly, and of course, if you have folks that really want to get into the technical details, like GIS folks, that detail exists as well. I'd like to highlight here almost half of the residents that responded think the cost of their current internet is too high. So I put some of the impacts in the slide, so please go ahead and take a look at that. But, I think that's just really something that we want to make sure that you're aware of is, in most cases, people or residents feel that they're paying too much for the services that are being provided to their home. Another thing that I felt was critical that we should talk about is, I think that we want the trend to be moving towards 100% of folks connected to the internet. And this I felt was a disturbing trend that we've got. Over the last year, we had almost 14% of the people that took the survey that had to reduce their internet access. And so I think it's important, especially if we're trying to offer services to our communities, that we try to ensure that they have the connectivity that they need to help get their work done. Let's see. And then this is another way that we sliced and diced the information around those that are feel that they're unserved. And I'll let you all just go ahead and go through the details. But you can see that when we did the survey, in most instances, we gave the respondents an opportunity to check, any of these boxes, concern about privacy as an example, or, internet availability. The largest one was, like I said, the cost is just getting to be too high. And then the second was, the setup fees, because I think we have some people that are in rural areas, and we've been experiencing, during our BEAD challenge process, the prices that some of these ISPs are expecting the resident to pay to get connected to the internet. And then just to summarize the next steps, what we wanted to do today is wanted to make sure that we encourage, the Oakland County residents to take advantage of the BEAD challenges currently going on. And it actually just extended the date from April 23rd to April 30th. And I think that's going to be a welcome, additional amount of time.
And I think I just want to jump in and pile on and say that first slide that Jeff shared where he said folks in Oakland County aren't getting the upload speeds they need. Right now, the BEAD map says that everybody in Oakland County has adequate service, with possible exception of Oxford and Addison townships. And only by taking the BEAD challenge can residents say, no, actually, I'm not getting the upload speeds that I'm paying for. And so there's a URL at the bottom of the slide. That's all you need to do. You just need to encourage residents to go there if you want to maximize the amount of infrastructure funding that is available to address that issue.
Okay.
So a couple other points that we thought would be a good next step would be to pursue a public-private partnership with Oxford and Addison townships to try to work and bridge the digital divide. And then, of course, why are we doing this? We're looking at how we can apply the BEAD funding that's going to be available next year, which is close to $1.6 billion in funds that was allocated to the state of Michigan.
Mm-hmm. And that application window, we're expecting that to open in late summer or early fall of this year.
Okay.
And of course, we do want to encourage the establishment of a digital inclusion task force within your communities. I think that's really key to preparing for, the grant funds that are going to be moving forward over the next year or few years. And then, of course, we'd like to mention pursuit of digital equity and other coming digital inclusion funding.
So it's kind of an interesting time. We've got this huge BEAD funding right now to address that infrastructure problem, and there's kind of a 1-2 punch. We're following up on close timing behind that is the Digital Equity Act that's intended to address other factors, perhaps such as affordability, or people don't have devices, or people don't think they need to use the internet. So this is a wonderful time to get engaged with digital inclusion.
All right, with that, I'm gonna open it up to the commission. If somebody's got questions, Commissioner Cavell, followed by Commissioner Rahman.
Thank you. Chris and Rachel, is it?
Jeff.
Chris and Jeff. You mentioned, so two things. In Oakland County specifically, what do you find the number of households without internet access in a suitable way to be? I skimmed through the report, and I know that you said something like 14% in the Tri-County area. What is it for Oakland County specifically?
I don't have the numbers at my fingertips, but we have given all the data to Rod Davenport and his GIS folks, so they should be able to pull that for you. And if they have any trouble with that, we've let them know, but please feel free to pass on. We're happy, our GIS staff is happy to jump on a Zoom and show them exactly how to pull it. But if you guys want custom reports, that's very doable.
Okay, and then I guess three things. So the second of three things is you talk about Oxford and Addison townships as places to focus on. I know from the dots on the map, and I'm again skimming through the report, I see that the heat maps show that they're concentrated, but in terms of Oakland County need. But I just Googled real quick that income, so the median income of an Oakland County household is $92,000 a year, and in Oxford it's $105K a year, and in Addison it's $104K. And in other places where on your heat map, there's a couple of hotspots. They're smaller than Oxford and Addison. Lake Orion is $108K a year. So again, they're above the median income in Oakland County. But you didn't mention Pontiac, which has several dots as well, which the median income is $40K a year per household, or Madison Heights, which is $63K. So why focus on the more well-off areas versus the less served, I would imagine. And that also kind of goes to what you mentioned in your report about the ACP ending. So can you just tell me your thought process there?
Sure. So feel free to jump in, Jeff, but what we focused on was where were we getting results where folks were either telling us they couldn't get access, or when they took a speed test, it was showing us that the service that they have is not delivering that modern definition of high-speed internet. And so based on those two, that's where we're seeing that in Oxford and Addison townships, they don't have adequate infrastructure today. Now, there may be many reasons for that, and it sounds like possibly, people's ability to pay might not be a reason. It could be population density. So, when there's a dense population in an area, it's worth an ISP's while to go build out to those folks because they're going to be able to get a lot of customers. But in areas like Leonard, where there's not that many folks, they might be saying, I'm not gonna go down that road because I'm just not gonna get that many subscribers.
I see.
So there could be multiple reasons for that.
Okay, so public-private is not, let's subsidize well-off people to have faster internet. It's maybe well-off people need to pay more for faster internet or something. But you say public-private, and I thought that's a setup for asking the county to figure out how to give you more money to help people with six-figure incomes.
We're encouraging public-private partnerships because otherwise what's left is just the market. Whoever wants to serve that area will apply for a grant, and they may provide the kind of service that you want your residents to have, or they might not. But if you choose to get involved, then you can say, you will serve this area. You will build out here, or you will use this technology, not this inferior technology. It gives the county more power in the decisions about what ultimately gets built and where.
It's more about if I remember this correctly, it's more about where does infrastructure exist? So up in the north end of the county, we may not have fiber going to certain areas because there hasn't been enough for, as she said, the ISPs to say, yeah, I want to go serve that area. An area like Pontiac has the infrastructure, but they have the economic issue, which is a different piece of this. This survey was really to see where do we have infrastructure across the 3 counties and how is it working? And this is the results of that. It's not comprehensive by any means to all aspects of how are people getting internet access when they need it. It was really designed to be around what infrastructure exists and is it working the way people think it is, and where does it not exist? That was.
Yeah, if I can interrupt you, I just feel like I want to make one comment. It's like the first 3 bullets on this slide for next steps are really around infrastructure. I think the latter, the last 2 are what we would want to focus on in, areas like Pontiac.
Right.
Is the Digital Inclusion, Digital Equity Act, building the task force and starting to, outline the needs within the communities, whether it's Pontiac or up in the rural areas in Addison or Oxford.
Okay. Yeah.
Good. Okay, Commissioner Rahman, you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know we're over on time, so
We are.
just very, very quickly, and I appreciate the data and the presentation. With the next steps that you've highlighted here, I guess what is our roadmap moving forward? The data is great because it substantiates a lot of what we've suspected. We're paying too much, service sucks, we've gotta fix it. We've known that even before we took the survey. So it's great, I'm glad we have this data. And I know we've outlined some steps, but really, what does that look like tomorrow, next week, next year? What do we do? Where do we go from here? We can obviously chase grant funding. It looks like they've outlined some great steps. But just for a layperson, how do I go to the community who's asking, hey, what happened at survey last year? What do we do and what is our time frame? What do I tell my community?
Can I ask for clarification, Commissioner Rahman? Is that a question for me or for Chair Markham?
I guess it's just whoever can answer it, I guess. Because I appreciate all of this, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really give me anything to talk to my district about when they're asking me what happened in that survey. And how are we going to fix their internet? So I don't.
So as I understand it, the survey was to tell us where we're at. And I think that's all we know right now. The survey ended like at the end of last year or in the fall. It ended. And I think it's a good question. Where do we go next? I think we do need to talk to our ISPs. Some of us have been down to visit some of their facilities and so on. But I think we start with the fact that they're not delivering overall across the county what they're promising. So I think that's step 1, is to talk to them about what plans do they have. What makes me nervous is this idea of encouraging the residents to take the BEAD challenge. Okay, we have 1.3 million residents in this community, and I don't think 1% of them have ever heard of the BEAD challenge, let alone how to get to it, how to take the, provide the data. So,
And that's after they took the survey last year.
And that's after they took the survey. So I just don't think that, I've been very uncomfortable with the way the state's been going about this with the BEAD funding and the BEAD grants and so on, because I don't think we have visibility where we are, a high population area. I think there's a lot more conversations happening out in the rural areas, right?
Yes.
So I think the whole thing is still very wide open, and what do we do next? It's a very good question. I don't think we have answers to that unless Mr. Davenport or somebody else can jump in and say, we've got something planned, right?
I will say that the counties that seem to have continuous momentum are ones that have established a task force to drive forward these issues on a regular basis.
And Okay,
Cool.
that's, yeah,
great.
having a group of people who's dedicated to getting those answers is a good recommendation.
We're happy to share. We have a draft resolution that we'd be happy to share, charter,
Okay.
et cetera.
All right, yeah, I think we'd like to get a hold of that. Are there any other questions besides Commissioner Raman's wide open question?
I had one last.
Okay, Commissioner Cavell, I'm gonna give you
Yep.
one last.
Thank you. Just, you mentioned in your report that your numbers are more comprehensive than the FCC data. How does that work?
Oh,
no.
Simple question.
Well, you don't have to give the super detail, but the FCC says there's 1,000 households without internet in Oakland County, and you say something different.
Sure. Well, I guess that I would start with by saying that the FCC's data is that they ask the ISPs, who do you serve? And it is in an ISP's interest to overstate who they provide service to, because that prevents a competitor from coming in and trying to serve that area. And there is no, at least so far, there's really not been any downside to overstating that. In other counties we've worked in, it's been about like a 60% difference between what the FCC says is served and what was actually served. It was less so for the Tri-County area, but it's definitely, I think it comes down to what's your source of truth, right? So the FCC says the source of truth is the internet service providers. Our research over the last many years has shown that it's really the residents know whether or not they can subscribe to a specific service.
and I will add that when we started down this path, we were told that if there is one spot in a census tract that has service, that census tract is considered to have service. So a place like Pontiac, you know, you have a census tract that, oh yeah, okay, this house has it, but 12 houses around it don't. It still showed on the FCC map that census tract had internet service available to it. So that's.
And the good news, yes, now that the BEAD map has come out, it's much more granular. It's at that house-to-house level, and it is more accurate. But that's the reason we're having this BEAD challenge is it's not 100% accurate. So we're trying to get it to be more accurate.
So go tell your residents to take the BEAD challenge. Okay, does anybody have anything else they want to ask? Okay, we appreciate your presentation. We wish we had another hour to really dig down to the guts of it, but we don't. So thank you for that, and I will take a motion to receive and file. Commissioner Smith Charles, supported by Commissioner Weipert. Let's prompt the vote, please.
And while commissioners are voting, I'll just remind you, both the presentation and the report are in your packet and online for residents to access.
Thank you. So I said we can pick the one group. Packet. Markham?
Yes.
Smith Charles?
Yes.
Yeas or nays?
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you for your presentation. Okay, next we have item 9, the departmental
There's a question.
recommendations. Oh yeah, we need to get back to
There
the.
was a question for you in the.
Somebody has a question in the chat.
It was just if we wanted the speakers to stay on, and no, they
Oh.
could certainly, leave after.
Yeah, no, Merit folks, we're done with you for the day. Thank you. Okay, next up, we have item 9A, transfer from the non-departmental technology projects to the Information Technology Fund for the event management platform. I need a motion, Commissioner Raman, Commissioner Smith Charles. Good afternoon. Please introduce yourselves and.
That's Mr. Rowley, topic here. Commissioners.
Okay.
Say it.
What's your name there? I am Dom Holmes, Deputy Director of Economic Development.
And I'm Teresa Rosento, Director of the Department of Public Communications.
I'm Tammy Shepard, PRM inside IT.
Davenport, CIO.
Thank you for hearing our request today for an amendment. that will allow for the purchase of an event management platform. Right now, we're using a variety of tools depending on event and department. Some of the more popular ones are Eventbrite and Sign Up Genius. What this tool will allow for is some consistency across the county, and because it's coming from Oakland County, it'll be a trusted brand. This platform will allow us to more easily register attendees and event manage. So our recurring events like veterans resource fairs or senior workshops, as well as our bigger events like State of the County. And while DPC and Economic Development are spearheading this event, this is something that will be utilized countywide for all departments and elected offices. We've already completed the bid process and are ready to execute on a contract pending your approval. So we appreciate the consideration.
Anybody have any questions? Commissioner Long?
So are we, thank you, Madam Chairman. Are we going to just use this one, or are we still using other? We can still use Eventbrite, we can still use, you just want an option to use this other one too? Is that what we're voting on today?
The goal would be to sunset the other solutions and make this the primary solution for all events management.
Okay, so get rid of the other because it's normally Eventbrite, I think, wasn't it? From the state of the county was
Eventbrite was State of the County.
Okay, so you wanna move to this new cloud-based, what is it? vFairs? Is that-
vFairs, yes.
vFairs, okay, I've never got an invite from there yet, so that's what I meant. All right, thank you.
And this will allow for hybrid, in-person, and conferences.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, thank you. Be the main.
Anybody else? Commissioner Rahman?
What is our timeframe for implementation?
Have you heard of vFairs before?
So-
Got anything? I get it.
I know that after this process, assuming we get your approval, we're gonna go into contract negotiations with the potential vendor. And then we'd be looking at an implementation timeline, which would be guided by our friends in IT.
That's right, yeah. So we don't usually say when we'll be done until we have actually executed the contract and negotiated a timeframe with the vendor as well.
3, 6 months? Well, I'm just I'm not holding you to a date, but just to get an idea.
That would be ideal.
Yeah,
Yes.
6 months.
Is that name? vFairs.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smith Charles?
Thank you. I guess this is for Rod. Do we have a standard retention policy on, the event from 5 years ago, who attended, email addresses, and also do we own that data?
That's a good question. I don't know about the retention policy for events. I guess it would depend on the data classification, but that's, yeah, I'm not sure. And what was the second for the?
Number one.
Well, certainly please check, because I just asked someone to check a form from last year's Women's History Month. And it was via Google Forms, which I know is definitely still in their inbox. Whereas I just want to know, if things will disappear like they so quickly do in our inboxes here. Wink, wink. But the second question was the data, who owns the data?
Typically, the organization owns the data, but I think that would be part of the contract execution negotiation pieces, so.
I would definitely like us to retain ownership of the data, especially like the emails, phone numbers, why they attended, all those kinds of things. And maybe it could be anonymized for those other folks.
Detailed reporting.
That's all I got. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, anybody else? Charlie, Commissioner Cadell, sorry.
So it's $63,000 for year one. What will it be for the following years? And then also, this is coming out of, it says the IT non-department fund. I knew we had a non-department fund, but I did not know we had a non-department IT fund. So I'd love to know how much money is in that. And then I guess if that's what you said, but the third thing is basically, is this gonna come out of economic development or IT or non-department for the next 3 years?
Just stay at the table.
So on the first question, the recurring cost is roughly $58,000 per year. And I'll defer to Cheryl on the next question.
Thank you, John.
Yes.
The IT is a line item in non-departmental, so it's not the IT non-departmental fund. There's only one fund for non-departmental, it's an area, and there's a line item for IT. As far as how much is in that line item, I don't know off the top of my head, but I can find out. And then what will happen going forward is the initial cost will come out of there as a transfer, then going forward it'll be baked into their budget. Yeah, economic development going forward.
When you send the IT non-departmental, could you just also share all the line items for non-departmental? If
Yeah,
there's- Okay,
yeah.
thanks. Or at least where to find them in the budget
Yeah,
book.
it's also in the budget book.
Yeah.
And it'd probably be easier for me to send you the page
Sure.
number.
Cool.
Cause it's probably like page 539 or something.
Okay, thanks.
If she's right exactly, you definitely deserve the title.
Anybody
right.
else got any questions for this group? Seeing none, let's prompt the vote, please.
I did it too, I was wondering that.
Smith Charles?
No, I mean, yes. I thought you were asking, did it work?
Yeah. Yours isn't working.
Lon?
Yes.
Thank you.
Let me see if I
Okay,
can-
motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioners.
We'll see.
Next up, we have item 9B, the 2024 equalization report. We're all waiting anxiously for.
Oh, I'll move it.
It's moved by Commissioner Smith Charles, supported by Commissioner Hoffman. Good afternoon.
I know it's just the report.
Go ahead.
It's just the report. But you know, they're getting.
I'm Michael Lohmeyer, Equalization Officer of the Equalization Department, Oakland County. With me this afternoon, I have Terry Schultz, Chief of Equalization, Fields and Equalization, and I have Tiffany Jacob, Supervisor with Equalization with me. I'd like to thank both of them right from the start for all their hard work, preparing not only this report, but all the work they do at Equalization throughout the year, and also all the members of the staff at Equalization. There's a lot of people at Equalization that work hard for this report, for all the services they provide to help make me look good, and also do all the services for our residents and business owners throughout Oakland County for assessment and equalization services. So I want to thank all of our staff. Before you, you have the 2024 equalization report. And I just want to give you somewhat of an elevator approach to what you have before you, because this report is used not only by you for budgeting purposes, but it's also relied on by other municipalities, other professionals throughout the year for their use. To know what the values are for assessments, taxable values, for comparisons, for starting figures, and when they compare it to other reports that we provided in other years. So I'd like to just briefly go through it, and then I'll stand ready for any questions you might have. Right in the very beginning, the first page, it gives you what our total assessed value and taxable value is. Our state equalized value of 106 billion is a 9.17% increase from 2023. And our taxable value there at 80 billion is a 7.31% billion increase from last year's value. The next page gives you a breakdown between the different classes of property value: agricultural, commercial, industrial, residential, total real property and personal property, and then a total combined. The next page gives you just the resolution, which you've seen before, and it gives you the same information on the prior pages. On page 7 just gives you a nice summary of the state equalized value on the left side and the taxable value on the right side. And as you can see, residential is still, on a county basis, still the largest of the classes of the properties for both assessed and taxable value. And then it breaks it down into real property and personal property, and I'll let you look at that on your own. You've probably already seen that. On page 10, you start looking at a comparison of the different communities we have. It starts off with total values on page 10, and then it breaks down on real and personal property on the next couple of pages. But you can see it starts off on townships first, and then cities next. It gives you the 2023 numbers for assessed value first, and then 2024 assessed values in the columns. Gives you the percent change between the years, and then it gives you the taxable values. So you can see how each of the townships and cities have went from 2023 to 2024 changes for each one of those communities, both townships and cities. So that's good information for both cities and townships to look, and at the very bottom of each one of those pages, you can see it for the county totals. So a lot of people like to use this report, and we do have each one of the reports for the prior years on our website. And we would post this after the Board of Commissioners meeting if you vote this affirmatively, not only today, but next week. On page 13, it gives you a comparison for 24 of equalized values over a subsequent of not only the past prior years, but also on a percentage basis. And then over on, if you move forward on page 15, it starts breaking it down into those classification of types of properties on a total basis. So people can actually look at total agricultural property, commercial property, industrial properties. Those are really important, especially for our brokers that work in the county, like the Signature and Associates, who deal in commercial and industrial property, or the residential brokers. They like to see how the big group of property in the county work and how they've changed on an assessed value basis. So they call us on a regular basis, but we also meet with them in our office. We have lunch and learns with them. So that's important information that they study. If you turn over to page 18, it breaks it down now on a assessed value basis, and then it gets into taxable value again, more detailed information on a township basis first, and then on a city basis. So it gets into more and more detail for each one of these areas. Again, breaking it down into real property, personal property, and assessed value and taxable value for both townships and cities. So it gets more detailed information for you. But what's really nice and what gets more detailed too is on page 22, it breaks it down even into greater detail and gives you parcel counts for each one of those areas. Because a lot of times people want to see how parcel counts have changed since the last year to the prior year also, as well as how those values have changed. So sometimes, because we do a lot of splits combinations, parcels become exempt or they become non-exempt over the years. So we do have a lot of parcel counts that have changed. And these are the pages that actually will tell you that information. And then as you get farther in the back of the book, it'll give you a village breakdown, because we do break down the villages in the back for real and personal property, and the very last section gives you the special act information. So I know you've seen this report over the years, but breaking it down from the very general information in the very beginning to the more specific detailed information as you go through it, almost like a funnel approach, gives you a lot more detailed information as you need it. And it serves not only for the county basis for budgeting, but it also serves a lot of greater detailed information for a lot of private practices that we deal with on a regular basis. And with that said, I'll entertain any questions you might have about this report or anything else we do at the Equalization Office.
Thank you. I have Commissioner Rahman, followed by Commissioner Smith Charles.
Thank you. Ms. Schiller, thank you, as always, for the data. Just a couple quick questions for you. Looking at page 10, 11, and 12, this is just a simple question. What is the difference between these three? I know we've got real property and then personal property. What is page 10? That's
10 gives you a total amount with assessed and taxable value, so that includes real and personal property on that, those amounts.
and it just separates them into.
It separates them into two different asset groups.
Okay, and real, remind me again, the difference between real and personal is?
Real is real estate, so that's all your physical assets. Personal property would be the tangible property, but it's movable, so your machinery, equipment, furniture, desks, tables.
Okay. And then my question too, in looking at this, you know, obviously we have a percent change, you know, the SCV and then the taxable value, which is great. These numbers, how do they compare to previous years? I know we have a year over year with 23 and 24. They seem higher to me, and again, obviously I know last year with inflation and things like that too, may or may not account for a lot of this. But I'm just curious how these numbers correspond to previous year over year changes.
They are higher. The county overall has changed. The assessed value went up 9% and taxable 7%.
But compared to even previous, I guess what I'm saying is we're talking a year over year change of 9 to 10% now. You know, a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, what was the year over year?
They have increased. This year, the taxable values increased year over year. The inflation rate multiplier this year was 5.1%, and taxable is higher overall in the county. Last year, the inflation rate multiplier was 7.9%, and overall our taxable value was higher.
Okay.
Right now, we're at, the CPI is about I think we're averaging like 3.1% right now, and inflation is still higher today. Interest rates are over 7% today, so inflation is still somewhat high no matter who you talk to. So personal property also, in many cases, and in some cases, you'll see personal property has increased, but that's a lot of that is because in most areas you have utilities that have offset a lot of the depreciation, the ESAs and the small business taxpayer exemptions. Where you have declines in personal property are probably in the northern communities. But in most of the urban communities like Pontiac, you'll see increases.
Well, I was gonna comment on that too, because on personal property, for the total cities, we're actually down almost 1%.
For that depends on whether it's an urban community or a rural community, and for the most part, it's because you have those manufacturers and they get the exemption for the ESA, eligible manufacturing personal property, and the 5076 is a small business. So where those have come into play, you'll have a decline. For those that didn't, they'll have an increase because of the utilities have offset it. Utilities have been still a big increase this year.
So something like Northville, for instance, is -13. Now that isn't rural, I don't think.
No, but they didn't have enough, the utilities just didn't offset it enough.
Okay, so it's not a concern, the fact that that's down.
No, but you can expect because of the ESA, because of the personal property exemptions, you're just not gonna have the personal property coming in new for small business taxpayers like you used to in the past. So you can't count on the personal property as an increase anymore.
The others in Wayne.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner who did I have next? Commissioner Smith Charles.
Yep, thank you. Yes, thank you. Michael, right? Okay. The assessed value, or I should say the equalized value of the county is 106 billion.
Yes.
And my question is also, in terms of the commercial side, do we factor in or are we made aware of occupancy ratios across the county in terms of municipality per municipality when it comes to those commercial buildings? Obviously, I'm thinking a lot of Southfield, of Troy, probably just those two in terms of like skyscrapers. How do we factor that in if they're half empty?
We do study vacancy. We do study vacancy and we get reports and we actually share those reports with our community leaderships. Matter of fact, we have started an e-newsletter, and we actually started a newsletter when I first got to Oakland County. And we gather reports from Integra Realty, Signature Associates, and we've been sharing those regularly with our leaderships of different communities and some of our sister communities that we don't do assessing for. So those go into income capitalization studies that we do when we come up with values. And throughout Oakland County, for example, Signature studies the vacancy and we study what, they share that information with us. And there's differences between regular vacancy per leases and then those that actually have leases, but they're not turning the lights on in those buildings. And we take all that into consideration. So for example, Pontiac and Southfield Township and the communities, those leaders get those emails from us and we share it with all those folks. So they're made aware of it and for their budget purposes and why we share it.
Is that e-newsletter for the general public?
We started off sharing it originally with our own client community's leadership for their budgeting purposes because we're not all at all their leadership meetings. And then it's kind of morphed into everybody that comes to our quarterly assessor meetings. Then anybody can subscribe to it now through the regular listservs because everybody finds it pretty valuable information.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anybody else? Commissioner Hoffman.
Thank you. The average taxable increase for Oakland County is like 7.5%. Now, because of Proposal A, it's capped at 5%, right? Your taxes go up 5%.
The CPI for what we can apply is 5%, but you still have things that uncapped because of transfer of ownership.
Oh,
You
yes.
have DEX,
Sure.
all those things get added on top of that 5%.
True. Next question is on page 16.
Sticker shock.
It says like industrial, and then below it has an amount for a loss. Is that because of depreciation or something, or what is that loss?
The loss is any market change that would decrease, so anything that's a market adjustment downward. So those are values that went down because of market adjustments in those areas. So just like some markets go up, you
Oh,
have
okay.
markets that go down.
Okay, thank you. That's it, thank you.
Okay, and Commissioner Cavell, did you have a question?
Yeah, well, you mentioned ESA and 5076.
Yes.
What is that?
ESA, for personal property is now exempt like two different ways. Eligible manufacturing personal property, and there's a replacement, the ESA, Essential Service Assessment Tax. And then the other is the 5076 is for small business tax. So if it's under, now it's, the exemption is expanded to 180,000. Used to be 80,000, now it's expanded to 180,000, that's as of 2 years ago. So any new manufacturing isn't put on the tax roll as long as it's eligible as qualified under the state statute. So we phased it out as of, I think it was as of last year was the last year for the big manufacturing personal property. So now anything new in Michigan that's brand new equipment, as long as it's eligible, it doesn't go on the roll. Now there's an essential service, what we call an ESA tax that's applied for it. Anything that goes up to 180,000 true cash value, which is 90,000 assessment, they can apply for this, the form is a 5076, and it's been in place since 2014. It's exempt, they only have to apply for it once and it's exempt until it actually goes above 180,000. So we've lost that kind of personal property too, and that's industrial or commercial property.
And what was that tax capture before? Like, what was it, the normal assessed rate?
Before, we would have taxed it as regular personal property. So first, back in 2014, the small business taxpayer took effect, and the eligible manufacturing, there was a 10-year phase out for that. And last year, it started in 2013, and 2023 was the last year that phased out.
Do you have just like an example or a guesstimate of like how much per person or per business, or I guess per piece of machinery that saves someone, right? If you're using the $180,000 metric, they're then saving how much roughly on their taxes?
It really depends on how much that would have been depreciated and how old that equipment was.
Sure.
I mean, we could get you some examples for it, for some that were taken off the roll.
Yeah, that would be helpful, right? Because the depreciation standard's like 7 years, right? Something like this. I know it's different for
Depending on
different
what
things,
type
but
of
yeah.
equipment they had.
Yeah, but just to know the impact. Thanks.
Okay, anybody else have any questions for this group? Really good explanation of a difficult topic.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's prompt the vote. And we are receiving and filing, right?
Yes, so. Did you get your vote in? You did? Mine's not working. You already did? To refresh.
Any commissioners that didn't pop up, Tracy will just say their name and.
Yeah.
Long?
Yes. I'm gonna refresh now. We have to do the vote.
Okay, Mark,
Sometimes it doesn't work with the vote.
Ms. Charles?
Yes.
You have 8 years, 0 nays?
Okay, thank you.
Now.
Thank you again for your
Appreciate your time. All right, next up, we have item 9C, the fiscal year 2023 deficit elimination plan. Moved by Commissioner Rahman, supported by Commissioner Smith Charles. Commissioner Rahman, can you run this meeting for a couple of minutes for me? Thanks.
Do you have a list?
So you, I'll bring it over if you just wanna come. Yeah, there's an agenda already here for you and I'll bring the iPad over.
Or you just run back and vote. It's faster.
All
Just run
right, so
back and
we
vote.
are moving to, is this 9C? Fiscal Services, fiscal year 2023 deficit elimination plan.
I think we have did you have a motion already?
I think we already did a
Yeah.
motion, right?
Yep.
Do we have a second as well?
Yep.
All right, perfect, I'll turn it over.
Thank you. Cheryl Johnson, interim deputy CFO. This is Shannon Lee, she is my chief of fiscal services, also known as my right arm. I'm gonna let Shannon talk you through this item. You will also know this item is on the audit agenda as well. The reason we're presenting it here is for the deficit elimination plan, we need a resolution so that we can send the whole thing to the state to get it approved. So Shannon's gonna walk you through that process and what it entails. It's really just a matter of details of how we go through when we have deficits in some of our funds. We show that we have a plan for getting out of them. And then we send all that over to the state and then they approve all of there's several reports that get approved after the audit is done. So you'll see the details in the audit book. After this, we're a little out of order, but based on timing, this is how this ended up on this agenda.
Shannon? Thank you, Cheryl. And thank you, committee. So as Cheryl mentioned, it is a requirement of the state that we actually put it in this deficit elimination plan. And the attached document will go through the 6 funds that we had that were in a deficit for fiscal 2023. The reason for many of these, especially the special revenue funds, is that it's a timing issue. If we don't get the money from the state or the federal government in a timely fashion for the grants, and in a timely fashion is 60 days from year end, then we can't claim it as revenue at that point in time, and it's been put to unavailable. So that is the case with the 3 special revenue funds. And then the others are, actually there's 4 special revenue funds, 4 special revenue funds. Then we had capital project lake level funds as well. And these, it's also timing as to when those assessments come in. And there's plans, detailed spreadsheets for the state that we had to put together to show when we would be out of the deficit.
Okay,
Any questions?
Commissioner Rahman.
Thank you. Just a quick question on the last one with the lower Pettibone Drainage District Plan. Maybe it was just me. I didn't see it attached. Was it there? Cause it said, I think in the document reference below, but
Silver Straits.
I couldn't find it. I see bush level lake and.
On the back and not good.
Sean coming again.
So that one is, they should all be there. It might be a different naming on it.
Long day waiting down.
So the lower Pettibone, I believe, was 2 different funds. I can double check on that.
Chapter 4.
It's called chapter 4.
Oh, is that the same chapter
Yes.
for drain construction? Okay.
Chapter 4, it's the last page of the PDF.
Got it, okay, perfect, thank you for clarifying. So I didn't see it on there. So if I understand that correctly,
The
that,
commissioners read all the reports, won't it? All right,
so that.
any other questions? Are you done, Commissioner
Sorry,
Rahman?
yeah, just real quick, it was a 385.
383.
383.
Sorry, I'm just scrolling, trying to find my place here. 383,000, it started back in 2014 at 1.2 million, and we're now down to the 383, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so even though we're halfway through, we're well over halfway to paying that off.
And, you know, you can see that special assessments in 2023 were more than what we're estimating going forward, but it just is when they come in.
Okay.
So,
A little additional detail, so when we do drains, we do construction on the drains, we plan the special assessments out 10 or 20 years, so it's not a burden on the taxpayers of the local municipalities. So that's why it's in a deficit, and that's why it's a timing thing, because we do have the money coming in on the special assessments on the tax rolls to pay that deficit off.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith Charles.
Yeah, Ms. Johnson, you had mentioned that it states when we can anticipate having the things paid off by. I may have missed it, but is it September 30? I just wanted to make sure I was clear.
Well, each one
Is it each one individually?
Yeah, each one is different. So what you'll see, like if you look at the front of the court, you'll see that it is paid off in fiscal '24. Which is the first page of spreadsheets. If you look at the second, you'll see that that goes into, if you kind of look at the bottom line, it's really simple, but the first one's in parentheses, that's a deficit. The second one's not in a parentheses, that's out of the deficit. So depending on how long it takes is how long we provide the spreadsheets for. So when you get towards the end, with the one that we were just talking about, it won't get paid off till 32, so that's why we put that spreadsheet out till 32.
Got it. Thank you.
no, you're fine, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. let's go ahead and prompt the vote, please.
There, it came up.
I swear, to their first page. So much suspense for you.
Yes, figures doesn't know.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Cavell,
Yes.
And yours worked that time.
Okay,
and then
motion
his-
carries.
and then
Thank you very much.
Ron donated.
To the agenda. Okay, that completes item 9. Item 10, Economic Development and Infrastructure Committee recommendations from the meeting that took place earlier today. Item 10A is Pontiac redevelopment project, architect, engineer, and urban planning services for renovations to 31 East Judson and 5111
I know,
Pontiac.
my last one.
Should you do both of them at once? Or
51-111 is what we say.
Do we wanna, you think we should do both?
absolutely do both.
Wow. No, I need to know how my commissioner's gonna vote on each one.
Well, this isn't the signature one.
Okay, because we did have differences in PR as to how they were voted,
This is
so I think we'll
collective
keep them
revenue center.
separate.
The signature
So we're
one,
looking at
yeah.
10A. This is architect, engineer, and urban planning services.
All right.
Floor is yours. Oh, I need a motion. Commissioner Powell, Commissioner Smith-Charles, thank you.
The other one, right
Glad my team keeps me straight when I haven't had anything to eat since 6 a.m.
Oh, yeah, throw her a breakfast bar.
Yeah.
I did, for y'all.
oh, you
All right, go ahead,
You
Sean.
want one?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Brains.
So I was in front of this committee a few weeks ago, letting you know that this was coming before you. So we conducted an evaluation, put out to bid, architect, engineering, urban planning, and community engagement. We had 8 vendors that submitted bids. AECom, Albert Kahn, Ghaffari, HED, KK&A, Newman Smith, NOR, and TDG Architects. So we had a very, what I would say, competitive process, which is good. It was out on the street for 30 days, and the evaluation committee had the ability to award in part or in whole. And as we looked through this process, there was support for HED to handle both the architect and engineering as well as the urban planning. And you'll see in the next resolution who we decided to award to in regards to AECom Sidewalk Detroit for the community engagement. What we're asking for is approval on this amount. Now, there was a question in the earlier committee, ED&I, in regards to the $3.2 million. So the grant did come in. The grant was approved by the Board of Commissioners, I believe, at the last meeting. So now the money needs to be sent. The money isn't here. What we were approving was the MEDC agreement. So now that the MEDC agreement is signed, the money will come in. So what we've been doing in the interim as we've been bringing these contracts online is using the GF amount as a temporary. That will go away. All that money will be in an account, and this 3.2 will come from the grant that we received from the state of Michigan. So I just wanted to explain that because that was a little bit of an outstanding question from the previous committee meeting. So hopefully that's clear. We also had a question in regards to, is the amount, is that amount too high? And what I would say, and I think I've mentioned before, I've been doing procurements for 30 years. What you want in a public procurement is you want competitive bids. You want to make sure that bids are out on the street long enough to give businesses the opportunity to bid on it, and you want to encourage competition. This competition drives the price tag of government down, and we feel very confident and comfortable with the 8 bids that we received and the $3.2 million that is coming out of this contract. So I just wanted a couple of follow-ups from the previous meeting. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay, I'll open it up to the commissioners. Commissioner Cavell.
Hey, Sean, I'm sorry if I missed you say this, but in part of this and the next one, right, because we're on A still? Okay. And things just going forward with this, for these bids, can you share what if any DEI concerns or issues, or right, how that scoring was considered, if at all?
Yes, it was. Matter of fact, we integrated as part of our process. DEI was a component, and it was 15 points of the 100 points that was scored in regards to how the companies look at DEI and how they incorporate it into their company. So it was looked at.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else? Commissioner Powell.
I don't know if this is the appropriate time for it, but I know Commissioner Miller has brought up things in regards to the union space. Has this company entertained any union type, or I'm sorry, in this process, was that something that was asked, or are we looking at something like that in that space? I know he just mentioned it to me, but I don't know.
Not in this particular. These are professional services.
Okay.
But there are provisions sometimes called labor harmony or prevailing wages. We'll be looking at that as it relates to the construction management and the RFP development, which is the next two that are scheduled to go out on the street.
All right, thank you. I'm learning. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Seeing no one, let's prompt the vote.
Did you get yours back this time?
Yes.
Smith Charles? Refresh, good then.
Yes.
Cabell?
Yes.
Yeas, three nays.
You refresh.
Okay, motion carries.
It's not a yes.
I refreshed his.
Chris,
Five.
she came up and I voted and she saw.
They voted against it in EDI too. So, okay, next up is item 10B, Pontiac redevelopment project, architect, engineer, and community engagement services for renovations to 31 East Judson and 51111 Woodward in Pontiac. Moved by Commissioner Powell, supported by Commissioner Cavell. Okay.
Yes, so this one deals with the community engagement services. Sidewalk Detroit, which was the subcontractor that AECom had partnered with on this project, did the best in the process and had overwhelming support from the evaluation committee in regards to being the recommended awardee for the community engagement, given their experience in some of the other communities and their approach to this project. So that's who we're recommending.
Can you tell us a little bit about what community engagement consists of?
Yeah. So community engagement, as we're using the term, is to make sure, and I mentioned this in the previous community, and we heard this from the city council and other Pontiac leaders, is it's important that we're working with the city. We're not doing something to the city, that we're working with them in this process. And community engagement is an important step to get some professionals in here to make sure that they're grabbing and understanding communication from city leadership in Pontiac, as well as community and residents, especially those that live in the downtown area. But it's also in regards to our employees that we're moving down to the city of Pontiac as well. So the community engagement will encompass all of those components.
And when you talk about the people that are moving from here to there, have we identified those departments yet? Or I know it's being worked on, but it hasn't really been announced yet.
So what I'll say to that, because it's not fully endorsed at this point in time, but what I would say is those employees are coming from the county executive's office. I don't believe that there are any employees that fall under any other elected office. It's the county executive's office, and we're looking at 600 plus employees. And of course, that will be dependent on the A&E designs and so forth and requirements, so.
Okay. Moving along then. Yeah. Commissioner Powell.
The amount, I had questions, and how did y'all come with that amount? It just seems like 130 for community engagement may be a little lacking. in the process, but I don't know how y'all figured out and what their services and what they're
Yeah, that's
exactly
what they
gonna be
bid.
doing.
That was their bid,
Oh.
so.
So that's not concerning that it's low, or it's just,
Well,
I mean,
they have
yeah, what
experience in this area and we believe we described the scope. So obviously if the scope, increases, then, possibly that dollar does. But at this point in time with the scope that we provided, that was the bid that they provided us.
Hmm.
And we confirmed that bid as well once we told them that they would be the recommended awardee.
so they'll be doing a lot of interface with the community, but also with the elected leaders in the city? That's
Well,
what the goal
I don't
is?
know if it, they'll certainly have sessions. I imagine they'll have sessions. They'll have sessions with the elected leaders. They'll have sessions with the residents, probably the business owners that are down there as well, as well as our employees.
And you said some of the other communities they interface with is what?
City of Detroit, they've done multiple projects in the city of Detroit and they've also worked very closely with Grand Rapids.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, anybody else? Seeing none, let's prompt the vote, please.
Didn't come up.
We can't to anybody.
Bob's a yes.
That's why I said it's gonna confuse him, he's gonna say yes, cause his vote didn't come up. So I'm kinda laughing over here, Sean, when his didn't come up, that's why I was laughing, I'm like, he's gonna get confused.
We had him till we started getting sassy with him.
Two nays. Yeah, okay. Motion carries, thank you. Everybody refresh your iPads just in case. That seems to help. Okay, next.
Burning up, it's been so long, meetings, I think they're on fire.
Okay, next we have item 11C, acceptance from the Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs of the 2024 Michigan Medical Marijuana Operation and Oversight Grant.
Real quick, don't we have 11A?
Yeah, the theft prevention, you forgot one, A and B.
Oh, you know what, I'm
How about, yeah, A, I have the theft prevention for.
No, when I refreshed it, yeah, I'm sorry.
Phil, you're a little sassy, you better refresh, I like it, that's fine.
Sorry. Okay, item 11A, under the Public Health and Safety Committee recommendations. Amendment number 2 to the fiscal year 2024 Automobile Theft Prevention Authority.
Makes sense, right?
Moved by Commissioner Weipert, supported by Commissioner Rahman. Sorry about that, everybody, okay?
Good afternoon.
Trying to move this along.
Well, I will be brief, so hopefully this is your easiest one today.
It is.
So this is an amendment to our existing Auto Theft Prevention Authority grant, and the Township of Waterford has asked to assign a detective to this unit, so we're increasing the grant by $182,554. And the township is responsible for their 40% match.
That obviously is bad news in a way. Right?
Okay,
More.
do I have questions? Commissioner Rahman, followed by Commissioner Cavell.
Fully in support of it. I was just curious, how do we get other communities involved? Like, we have one community in my district that's having problems in this area. I don't know, is there a way to plug them in with someone if they're interested in doing something similar, or?
Yeah, so we have a couple of sergeants, if you wanna reach out to us, and if they're interested, then we can have that conversation. And obviously we can amend it mid-year, and I think there might still be another agency that we have a vacancy, so.
Okay, cause this is a big concern in my area too, so that's why I was just curious, but yeah.
Absolutely, and then because we have a sergeant in our office here on campus, and then we have a South End sergeant as well, so.
Okay, Commissioner Cavell.
Yeah, this being this is a grant funded program that is enhanced with local participation, right?
Yes.
So then, does it also fall under the indirect direct cost things we've had because Waterford's not one of our LES contractors, correct? So is their 40% also including the indirect costs, or is it just their straight across?
That's just their 40% match for the grant, so that's completely separate.
So this will not include,
Right, it's a different, that's a different contracting
sure,
mechanism, if you will.
and I guess, is that a good thing or a bad thing for this and why?
Well, this is through a grant, so it's a completely different
Sure.
authority that's granting us money, so that's
Sure.
not one of their requirements. What you're talking about is us providing services to somebody else, so
Right. So this
it's a
is,
different funding source, different funding mechanism.
so we don't, so if I understand then, we are covered, that you said they're 40%.
No, Waterford is covering it, so the Auto Theft Prevention Authority, let's say, so the position and all of their expenses are this $182,000. So the grant provides 60%, and then there's a 40% match. Waterford is paying that, so there's no cost to the county.
Got it. And then the county is just the recipient of that 60% to administer this?
Yes.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Seeing none, let's prompt the vote.
Yes.
Thank you. Powell?
Yes.
You have 8 yeas, 0 nays. Okay, motion carries, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is the amendment number 1, item 11B, amendment number 1 to the fiscal year 2024 Oakland Schools Home Visitation Grant. Moved by Commissioner Hoffman, supported by Commissioner Cabell.
Stacy's online.
Stacy Sledge is here. Welcome, Stacy.
Thank you. Thank you for having us today. Our first item is an amendment to the Oakland Schools Nurse Visitation Grant. This is for the period of October 1st through September 30th. The amendment includes funding in the amounts, additional funding in the amounts of $111,382. This funding has been added to continue providing evidence-based model fidelity home visitation in southeast eastern region of Oakland County. The original award amount was $477,000. And this brings the total grant award amount to $151,859.
Okay. Does anybody have, I'll open it up to the commission. Does anybody have any? Commissioner Cabell.
Hey, Stacy.
Hi.
Oh. So this program, if I understood looking at the budget right, has one staff person?
I have Jennifer Floyd here. She's the administrator for nursing services who can answer that question for you. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Hello. Yes, that is correct. We only have one individual funded through this grant source because, as you saw, it was relatively small prior to this. So yes, that answer is yes.
So then, is the need for evidence-based home visitation and nurse-family partnerships for family cohesion or whatever, is that only needed in Hazel Park, Madison Heights, Oak Park, and Southfield? Or is there like, more of a need?
Why is it spelled out just specifically to those?
Well, I'm asking, you have one staff person to do something that sounds super important for a county of 1.3 million people. And you just got, your budget just almost tripled, or you got more money. That seems like.
I think I understand the question.
Yeah, like where else would you put people if you had more people? If you had more money?
So we do. So we do have other home visiting nurses who work for this Nurse Family Partnership Program. It's just that this one individual is funded through this grant. So there are other home visiting nurses who deliver this service. Like Stacy stated, it's a home fidelity model. It's a nationwide model that we're using here in Oakland County. It's just the grant previously was only $40K. We can only fund one individual partially through that grant source.
Okay, and now you're gonna expand. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have questions? Seeing none, let's prompt the vote.
They work when they want to work. Now you got it.
Robin?
Yes.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, next up, we have item, thank you, Ms. Sledge.
She'll actually be here for the next item.
Oh, you're gonna be here for this one too? Okay. 11C, acceptance from the Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs of the 2024 Michigan Medical Marijuana Operation and Oversight Grant. I need a motion. Commissioner Smith Charles, supported by Commissioner Cavell. Okay, welcome again.
This is, of course, the medical marijuana grant acceptance. This year, we're receiving $515,000. This is for the period of January 1st through September 15th of 2024. This is an increase of about $63,000 from last year's award. That award was about $452,000. The purpose of this grant is to provide funding for education, outreach, awareness, focused on marijuana prevention and harm reduction efforts. This grant also supports the continuation of a part-time health educator 3 position within our health promotion services unit. I have Lisa McCabe-Chason, the Administrator for Health Promotion Services, here if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. I'll open it up to the commission. Commissioner Cavell?
Well, I just noticed, Stacy, and Lisa, I just noticed, right, this is, so the health department, I'm noticing this theme that you seem to have a lot of special revenue part-time positions, right? Other departments generally seem to have FTEs that are not special or not as many special revenue funded. It just seems like a whole lot of your staff is funded through special revenue. You in housing. I mean, so I guess that's just a statement that seems different. Because that means we're using other people's money as long as it shows up to pay for your like livelihoods versus our own money, general fund. And then a lot of positions at the health department seem to be part-time. Like, is this position, for example, it's only necessary part-time? Or that's the money you got so you're working with it?
Lisa, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, the position that's associated with the grant is part-time, and the big driver of that is it is not a full 12-month grant. So it's not a continuation grant. Makes it difficult to have a full-time person doing that work. And the other constraint we've experienced in working with Laura is the last 3 years, we haven't even received the award until the end of March or beginning of April. So we can't even present it for acceptance until mid-May or mid-April. And there were a couple of years, it was the beginning of May. So then we literally have 3 months to be able to do the work before we have to shut down because the grant shuts on September 15th. The other constraint, it is legislated. It is in law that the grant timeframes are these timeframes. And that drives the hiring of a part-timer.
Okay. So hearing that, just to say with all of us, right, if we're thinking about the systems that we were a part of, that doesn't have to be the way it is, right? We can use our own county monies if it was a priority enough to keep people safe from medical marijuana misuse and lockbox education and all that. If this is something we really care about enough, we could use our own money so it wouldn't have to be purely a 3-month part-time job based on the state's funding constraints. Just gonna say. And that, copy paste for a lot of health department positions. Thank you.
Anybody else? Commissioner Powell?
I was just looking at the funding breakdown. So what is some examples, because I haven't been able to get that report, that quarterly report y'all sent. As far as advertisement, we spent about $200,000, and then materials and supplies, we spent $275, but in salaries, we only had 19. So I'm just trying to figure out what are some of the things that we're spending the fundings on. I haven't got that report. I asked yesterday for a presentation, but y'all sent a quarterly report. I don't think I've received it yet. So could you just give me some examples of advertisement and materials and supplies? What is that?
Sure. The big crux of the supplies and materials is this year we're going to be buying 10,000 lock boxes and lock bags. It's a big component of our outreach, has been very successful in doing that. And we actually partner with all of you to assist in getting those supplies to the community. In addition, we will also be printing educational materials, magnets, and other bags that will be creating kits. So then that person who works part-time will go out and do the outreach for that. And then with the paid marketing, we are going to be doing your traditional billboard, bus, social media type ads in the area.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
The salary part.
All right. Oh, the salary just is it, you know, to us it's significantly low. And but is it just for the 3 months? That's what that's covering? Oh, that's why.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other commissioners?
Yeah, it feels like they hired somebody.
Seeing none, let's prompt the vote.
3 months.
Right. Okay.
Gift cards.
Val?
Yes.
You have 8 years, zero nays.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Item number 12.
Are you awake,
Fill my
Mike?
water bottle before we start on the rest of this.
Might go down there and get prepared.
She's icing you out.
I know.
I was gonna follow direction of the chair, but I guess I can.
Yeah, follow me.
Does she want me to take over or? I don't know if
Yeah, she's just filling up her water, so yeah, if you'd like to.
I mean, she's gonna be back right when you sit down.
I know.
Yeah.
Keep her chair warm.
Yeah, I
Keep her
did
chair
like
warm.
sitting up front, okay.
Brendan kept mine
okay.
warm a little too.
All right,
Keep her chair warm.
moving on. Next, we have 12A, sponsorship of the 2024 International and US Open National Bocce Tournament.
Chair, before we do that, I have a suggestion to amend whatever the thing. Can we just do 12A through E all at once in voting? Like we can hear presentation, but is anyone against any of these? Like worthwhile community projects?
No.
After all that waiting.
know.
You can still,
Sorry, Mike,
you
yeah.
can say,
Yeah,
yeah,
Mike,
there were questions I think got answered from his, I think.
I would
Yeah.
rather not do them all together. I would rather do them individually because they're very different.
Yeah.
And I would like us to have a bit of a discussion
Okay,
about each of them.
okay.
Because after this meeting, moving forward, I think we have additional conversations that need to happen relative to special projects and how they're constructed. And
Big versus small.
even if all of these pass today, they're very different from each other. And I think we just need to crank through them as more as examples than anything. Okay, and they represent kind of a wide range of locations in the county too, and I think that's important, so.
Okay.
We'll start with Mr. Gingel's project, item 12A, the sponsorship of the 2024 International and US Open National Bocce Tournaments. Moved by Commissioner Weipert, supported by Commissioner Powell. Good afternoon, Commissioner Gingel.
Thank you, commissioners. I appreciate it and would like to say I enjoyed sitting through the finance committee and what you do on a regular basis, so thank you. I guess I'll just be really short. In the past, we partnered with Palazzo de Bocce, which is in northern Oakland County, so up in Orion Township. And over the years, they've been building these two bocce tournaments. One is an international tournament where they'll have delegates from France and Japan and all over the world. One of the things I learned last year is that there is a bocce TV channel that I guess is a global channel. And I learned that because they were there at Palazzo de Bocce filming all the tournaments from Oakland County and talking about Oakland County and how they were putting on the special bocce tournament. So what I can say is that I know that the work that this entity is doing is getting special recognition from Oakland County around the world relative to bocce, which is the number 2 sport in the world behind golf, as I understand it, as far as populations. And in addition to that, they've been doing the same thing on a domestic tournament. So last year they had, I think it was 10 or 15 different states represented. And at least in the community that Palazzo Bocce resides in, these tournaments do bring in significant amount of visitors. So during these times, the restaurants, the hotels all around the northern Oakland County area are being filled up. And so in the past, they would do these tournaments every other year. So it'd be one in, international this year, domestic next year, US national next year. This year, they're trying to do them together. So the amount that was requested in total is the same in which we've spent over the past couple of years. It's just that you're seeing the two tournaments happen in 1 year, which I have spoken to the chair and to the chair of finance a little. And I know that in some regards, that may be an item that we need to discuss further going forward. If there's going to be 2 events in a year, that's not gonna be any consideration from this body's standpoint, even though we have the ability to. So I understand that, but for this year, they are working on putting these 2 tournaments together, one in May and one in September. And, from my standpoint, from my district, it's important. Clearly, I'm here and was waiting to have an opportunity to speak.
Appreciate your time. Okay, anybody have any questions or comments? Commissioner Cavell?
Isn't this and is it Winter Blast or Arts Beats and Eats? These are kind of recurring things. So is this something that I believe I heard tell that like in the hallway in passing that there's talk of these being like brought into like the economic development budget or something? Is that fair or not fair? Is this the plan?
I mean, that's
I
up for
think
discussion.
that is part of the discussion.
Yes.
Because everything Commissioner Gingell said is true. It brings great economic development to a part of our county, the restaurant. It's all about what we wanna do to show ourselves off. But if it is something that happens year after year after year, then maybe our economic development department should be linked in and part of that, as opposed to, a commissioner's kind of pet project, right?
Yeah.
And that, when I say we wanna have some discussion going forward, that's one of the items, is on these bigger ones, the skate park was another one, these bigger ones that are gonna happen all the time, or they're
It does bring a lot of people,
big
all of them.
infrastructure, we have a commissioner that's trying to move a barn, right, a historic barn, they're very wide ranging in what we're asking for, both in terms of the amount of money that they take and also whether they're kind of a permanent thing or not. So, yes, that's a good question. It's not gonna affect this decision today, I don't think, but it's definitely high in my mind as to how we manage these special projects and what they really look like going forward, so.
And I just want to add from the staff's perspective, Commissioner Chair Markham and Commissioner Powell and Rahman specifically have asked that we remind you all of that conversation when economic development comes for their budget hearing.
Oh,
So,
okay.
that will be outside of the special projects discussion, but certainly will still happen here at the finance level.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Commissioner Rahman?
During that.
No, it was actually just echoing, Commissioner Cavell, to me, it's a lot of money, 40,000. I appreciate Commissioner Gingell coming forward with this and wanting to represent his district. Knowing that our special projects budget has been cut from where it has been, it is a significant amount. And I would echo the same sentiment that if this is a recurring charge, I would very much like to see this come from Deputy Carlson's department or EDI, whatever it's called officially. I don't know if it should be a Board of Commissioner, expense.
Fair.
And it has nothing to do with Commissioner Gingell or the event.
Right.
I think I fundamentally have a problem with this dollar amount coming from our special projects budget.
Right.
So.
Again, that's kind of the conversation
Yeah, I think
that
we
as
all
a
agree.
caucus and a commission we need to have going forward.
Yep.
I agree. Commissioner Powell?
No, I was gonna say, it's just been a recurring event. Since I've been here, he's asked every year, until we figure out what we gonna do. I think fairly, we need to continue to support it, cause I ain't never heard no nays since I've been on here and I'm in here
Yeah,
5-6 years, so I totally agree with you. And that's something that we do because we've already passed the other two. And I know the other one's gonna jump on the books for this year until we figure this out, so to be fair ground, because it has been repetitious every year. I think we just need to move forward for this year and then figure out, how we're gonna move for future.
Like he said.
Thank
I'm
you.
glad we're having the discussion. It's percolating and we're all thinking about it and, you know. I think you still have the floor, Commissioner?
Well, I was just gonna say quickly, has this been brought up to their department yet? 'Cause
Oh,
I know-
absolutely.
Cause I know you and I were talking about this even when we kicked
Informally,
it.
yes. Informally, there's discussions happening, but this is.
That's why we're gonna formalize it in the budget hearing process. There have been other examples where a portion has been paid out of economic development, not necessarily for, there may have been for this project in years past. Yes, there's been informal conversation, there's been partnership on some programs and projects, and now I think there's agreement that we should formalize that in the budget process.
Right, so
Which
to
is gonna-
Commissioner Powell's standpoint, are there more coming that we're going to have to approve this year then? Just cause we're
It'll be
too far.
ours, beats and needs.
Yes.
Timeline it.
Yeah.
Ours, beats and needs is in the fall. That's the
Yeah.
last one.
Yep.
And, probably in Winter Blast.
A wind blast already, I believe we already appropriated that, it's
That
just gonna
one,
be
oh,
art speeds.
it was in
For fiscal
January
year.
or December.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm not remembering off the top of my
Okay,
head.
yeah, so
Fall.
that's the only last big one is
Yeah.
ours, beats and needs.
Yeah, that we do
That's our
every year,
next
that we do every
So
year.
is there time, to Mike Keys, I guess, is there time for us to do something
Oh, yeah, during the budget.
before
Yeah.
Arts Beats and Eats?
Maybe.
Not in the budget, yes, certainly you could do a budget amendment, but I wouldn't recommend that at this point. We have reached out to Sean Carlson in Economic Development, and they said that they did not budget for those expenses this year, and they are welcome the conversation to budget for it in the future.
So we're talking $50,000 for them and they can't figure that out.
Again, I wouldn't say that, I mean, I'd have to, explore it more, but when we're saying, are you talking about Arts Beats and Eats specifically?
We're 40,000 at that point.
Yeah, 40,000, they did not budget for, Arts Beats and Eats or Bocce or Winter Blast, no, they did not budget for it.
Because it's been handled by us in
All
the
the time.
past.
Yes.
But in
Many
this
years.
upcoming
Lot of
budget
years.
process, it's gonna be, we are hoping to change the way we're doing, especially the bigger ones.
Most definitely.
The budget process is the place to do it because economic development didn't have the money in their budget, we really had it in ours. But it makes some sense to maybe split them out, into. If we're gonna spend $150,000 on some event, it makes sense that the administration is part of that conversation. I think, because we're representing the county, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Overall, and it shouldn't just come from,
Absolutely.
Right.
And then just rethinking Commissioner Rahman's question, I think that yes, there are, because there has been times where we've even transferred into economic development to do it. So I think that, yeah, there are ways to even formalize it for upcoming projects. I would say with this one, we're at a point where we have to administer it, but I think staff can work with you to ensure that if that future project comes up, that we might have an opportunity to do that.
okay. Anybody else? I'm in support of this too because it has been a unique and really successful event up there. How many years have we been doing this?
I don't know, I would say maybe 5 to 7, something
Yeah,
like that
I
in
think when
different,
Angel first
different
came in.
veins. And so that's when it had just started. So it's really now got
Yeah,
momentum
big.
after being these consistent tournaments
I
for
stay
the last
right down
several
the street
years.
from it, so.
It's a nice place for people to come visit in the spring and the fall.
It's right down
Yeah.
the street from me.
And we'll make sure everybody's invited again this year and
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they
and
invite
come out.
us and.
It's
Yeah,
a
that's
great
good.
event to
Yeah.
see and witness too.
No, I haven't been before.
No, I need to go.
Go this year.
We have one.
I know we should go this year.
And there was a letter, and it's last minute.
There
in the
was a
packet.
letter. Did everybody see the
There's
letter?
hard copies.
Yes, yes, yes,
From the
email from the
director
owner,
of
from the,
Palazzo
yes,
Bocce.
yes.
The one
It's in our
other
email.
thing that we always look for in special projects is partnerships. Who else is coughing up cash to make this happen? And the partner here is Palazzo di Bocce, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay,
Yes, so they're putting in dollars too to fund the tournament.
okay, that's,
In the past, I can't speak for this year because I'm just not familiar, but they've also partnered with charities, nonprofits, bringing kids in. There was a charity in Pontiac actually where they were bringing kids in to expose them to bocce and allow them to experience it. So I know they do a lot in the community at large in Oakland County, and they've always been very good at working with foundations and charities.
It's just around you.
yeah, we just don't wanna be in the position where Oakland County's funding events
no,
and
it's-
nobody else is part of it kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's not the goal, so, okay. With no other comments or questions, let's prompt the vote.
Charlie. No, it'll pass. He's got some.
Right. Hoffman didn't come up this time.
Oh, okay. Hoffman?
Yes.
Howell?
Yes.
Jamal stepped away. Rahman?
No.
Oh, you had that, I'm so sorry. 6 yeas, 1 nay. Okay.
Thank you for
Okay,
coming,
thank you
Mike,
for your support.
staying
Thanks
that
for
long.
coming and
Yeah.
staying, Mike. That was
Yeah,
a
I know,
long
'cause there was
morning.
questions, so, I know, that's what I told him, I said, welcome.
Between jobs.
No, not really.
I know, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks. Can't get
Okay.
away long.
Next, we have item 12B, the sponsorship of the 2024 Clausen Friends of the Library Program.
I'll move it
Yes.
in solidarity.
Moved by
can do it
Commissioner
now.
Smith Charles
Oh,
in
support it.
solidarity.
There's Penny.
and Supported by Commissioner Long.
Yeah, I'll support it.
Okay, we have Commissioner Lubes here online to talk to us about this
I like the
project.
Meals on Wheels one, though. I like it.
Thank you, everyone. I am quite excited to present to you from the Commissioner's Special Fund Project, $10,000 to the Friends of our Library. Our library is our cultural center in Clausen. Clausen is 2.2 square miles, mostly known as a bedroom community. Our library provides our Friends of the Library offers the free resources and workshops and events for people to attend. We do offer programs presently. We would like to enhance and expand those programs. And we have our president of our Friends of the Library and other library board members on board with us for additional explanations and answers to questions.
Okay. I will open it up. Hello, Clausen.
Hi.
I'll open it up to the commission with questions. Anybody have questions for this group?
No.
So I have a couple of things. First of all, this is a one-time deal, is that correct, Commissioner?
Correct. Yes.
Time. Okay, and are there partners helping with these? Do we have any partners?
Our partners are residents and communities. So we expect our partners to fundraise, and we have fundraised in the past. This is not what this money is going for. The money is going to add additional programs that we have with the Friends of the Library.
Okay, so it's really the Friends of the Library that we are partnering with to do this?
Correct.
One of the concerns that's been expressed to me, and it doesn't relate directly to Clausen, but it's that, you know, we have a lot of libraries across the county and they're funded differently, right? Some of them are standalone, some of them are under the city government and so on. And we haven't done a lot with the libraries, so it's another subject that as we discuss special projects longer term, I think it's something that we should be considering. What falls into the special projects category and what doesn't? But again, I wouldn't wanna stop this one just because we're having ongoing discussions. Commissioner Rahman?
Correct, and actually, I have the exact same sentiment, you know, I think it's great, I'm happy to support Penny. My question is, you know, Friends of the Library, I think most library districts have their own Friends of the Library too.
Correct.
Novi case in point, I know they have a very active one as well.
Right.
They would love to see $10,000, I know.
Correct.
So, and again, I'm happy to support this and Penny today, but it just begs the question, do we
Longer
open up
term.
Pandora's box for every library throughout Oakland County now? Right?
Correct.
That's a slippery slope.
So Commissioner Lubes wants to answer.
So, thank you. Here's what I would say to you. I am the person that chose the Friends of the Library to move forward with this. So I'm going to pat myself on the back and say kudos to me because I thought of it before you. So if there's a way or an example that you'd like to get together and we do something as a commission for all the libraries, we can discuss that later or at an ongoing date. But right now, I present to you from the Special Fund Project, the monies for the Friends of the Library.
No, and I don't disagree with that, and Penny, just so you know, I'm happy to support you. I just wanna be careful
nothing
of what
against
we open up, down the road
Correct.
for anybody else.
Commissioner Cavell.
Thank you. Each commissioner has the opportunity at the present time, until the rules change, to present a special fund project for their library. But yes, I do hear what you're saying.
I'm gonna back Penny up, but also say I disagree with you, Ajay. Like, the way we figure out whether or not a project is good enough is we do the application, like Penny said,
Right,
because
it's
we
in
are
our
the commissioner.
community.
So it's almost a testament to how robust our communities are engaged in the library and the soccer team and the whoever and the whatnot.
What's
Ask
important
for
to that
money.
community.
Yeah, it's what's important to the community. So I think, again, the more constraints you put on it, because there's libraries everywhere or there's parks everywhere, that's not in the spirit of this, I don't think, because it's helping your community in the way that we best see fit. And then we have the further discretion or I guess discipline that comes with this is that we vote on these things. So like if you don't like libraries in Novi because it's too many libraries, then vote no. But don't tell Novi not to try and get money for their library, I would say.
It might be more important than other people.
As an example with the thing, Right, cause like I don't like bocce ball.
Right.
But I'm not gonna say, okay,
they
Mike
do.
Gingell, yeah, Mike
They do.
Gingell, that's your community and your community's prerogative and that's the one you wanna shoot your shot at, great. That's what you want for your community and that's what your community asked for,
And that's what
so be
brings
it, right?
economic
It's not on
development
us
and
to
then-
say that's not worthy,
Of their community.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
just like
Commissioner
Clausen's
Powell.
Library.
Well, just to bring some additional comments to
lump
this
them together,
discussion is because same thing just happened. I had 2 projects and one was for like sororities or fraternities. And it was advised to me that I shouldn't submit that because we have so many of them. So all I'm saying is moving forward, I do think we need to clean this up because that wasn't fair game with me when we doing the first come, first serve type operation, right? For what our community, and if we think this sorority is the one we needed to help, like, I agree with you and I agree with you, but we need
Right, I know.
something that eventually we do need to clean up. Because I had to remove mine.
Well, that's the thing, you shouldn't have to be in a place where you have to remove yours.
No, we shouldn't, but I understood what they were saying because just like he's saying, that could be a Pandora's box.
Right.
We get 100 libraries that now wanna fund from us,
But that's not
and
your
we don't have
problem.
that capacity.
Yeah, that's not your problem. Yeah.
I know it's not my problem, but I'm just saying how it happened to me to get one removed. And a subject matter is different topic matter, but it was removed.
But we can change that system so that
Yeah.
that doesn't happen.
And that's
That's what that's all I'm saying,
Yeah,
that's
I
just
get you.
something we need to
agree
talk
with
about.
you.
why I
that.
wanted to talk about all these because
Right,
they're all a
that's why she
little
did
bit
it
different and they
individual.
will inform our further discussion.
Sparking our brains.
So I would like
But I
to
agree,
bring this
every
meeting
commissioner.
back to order and Commissioner Powell, are
Oh,
you
yeah, I'm done.
finished?
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
done. Yeah.
next I have Commissioner Smith Charles and then I'll come back to Commissioner Rahman for a second time.
Thank you. Because we're having the discussion, I felt over the last year or so that there was a tiered system of if they were a governmental body, so a township, a city, for example, City of Southfield had a special project last year through the Chamber of Commerce, but because it was City of Southfield, it seemed like the process was a lot more frictionless and that staff here, because it was government to government, like it's a lot easier and smoother. Then I think the next tier would be like nonprofits where we don't have that governmental likeness. So I think it's a little bit more due diligence with the nonprofit. And then I'm thinking like there's a third tier of, none of the aboves. And so I don't know if Bocce Palazzi or whatever is a nonprofit, but I just feel like just as we're having the conversation to remember that it's easy for government to government, a little less easy for nonprofit to government, and then it's just like the non of any of that. Like, do they even get included in this process?
Yes, we actually defined all those in the policy recently, and I think that was a great, the way you just articulated it was very well.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you. Commissioner Rahman.
Just quickly to respond to Commissioner Cavell, I guess my thought is, it's called special project, right? So, and we can all have our own interpretation of what that means, what is considered special, what isn't. To me, special means something unique, something different, right? And again, that's just my interpretation. Everybody at this table may disagree with me, but at the end of the day, to support libraries, I wholeheartedly will support libraries, so I'm not saying that I'm not. And again, for Penny's sake, I want her to know I'm supporting her, so there's no question of where my vote is today. But my point is, it's not really that special, right? And I'm not just taking away from her, but is there something different about the Friends of the Clausen Library versus the Friends of the Ferndale Library, or Friends of the Novi Library, or Friends of the Southfield Library, who could probably all use $10,000? So does that mean every one of us around this table should now petition for $10,000 for their Friends of the Library, and we can drain our entire special projects fund just to support all of our libraries?
Yeah, that's part of the
Okay. Is that it, Commissioner? All right. Commissioner Cavell for one more time, and then we'll.
Yeah, I hear you, and I think when you're interpreting special, I think of it as the inverse. It's what is special to our communities. So I've never been to the Clausen Library, but it sure seems super special because these three people have spent half their freaking workday waiting on Zoom for us to give them $10K. You know, so that's special to them. It doesn't have to be special to us. That's part of living in a big community and a democracy. Is like, right? No offense, but I'm not a kite guy, right? Like, but that's not up to me, right? What's up to Phil is Lyon Township liking kites. So I think it's the inverse of like, you think libraries are special, but I might not think libraries are special. That's not what we're even talking about. We're talking about Novi is special to you and Ferndale is special to me. And so what's special to our things, we have to trust each other enough to say, all right, kites is your guys' thing, go for it, you know? Because then also the other thing is, when I ask you for money to help poor people in Ferndale, don't be like, well, I don't know, poor people in Ferndale, isn't my thing. Well, it's my community's thing, so like, be cool with it, right?
And I do think there's a piece of the discussion that needs to
Making the point.
talk about how big is the pot? How many requests do you get to make in a year? How big should each request be, kind of thing. We have not nailed that down. But I'm hoping that it will be a lot more clear as we go through next year's budget process, which starts for us really in July.
To that, I would love a deadline. That might help alleviate a lot of this, is if it's like by X date and that's it for the fiscal year. I don't know what other people think. But then that helps because I think part of what brings pressure to us is, did I get my thing enough? Or well, wait, if Mike gets $40K for Lake Orion, is that gonna mean that Novi in December, when they really need money for the, it's not gonna, for the Christmas thing, it's not gonna be there, and then you go, crap, I missed my chance, if we have perhaps if we have a deadline. Anyways.
So I heard Commissioner Rahman say, about that we've spent all the money, but we've never really been told we ran out of money yet. The way the budget is set up and all of that, we haven't been told we've run out of money. So that's kind of a phony, to use a strong word, deadline, or not deadline, but top.
Gwen, do you see who's here? Don't tell them that.
No, she knows.
She knows better than we do.
Conversation.
Talk about system change. We need money for every library, okay? Get ready, Cheryl and Brian.
This conversation,
okay?
Cheryl and I.
And Shannon.
Yeah. Anyway, with that, let's bring this back to Penny's proposal.
Pop the vote.
And prompt the vote. Penny came all over.
Yolanda's been here so long.
When she ready for us.
Aren't you still on audit?
I showed up after
I'm a yes.
Cavell,
Yes.
you have 8 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay,
You guys are
motion
lucky to have
carries. You
Penny.
got your money.
Go check out a book.
That's right.
Thanks for coming, library folks.
And
Go
don't
check out a
return it
book.
for a couple years. Give them $3. Yeah, right.
You've been listening.
Thank you. I like those little cards that you knew.
Next item is,
Thank you, thank you, we appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for all coming.
yes, listening to our banter. Okay, next we have item 12C, the sponsorship of the Oxford Township Parks and Rec 2024 Seymour Celebration. Moved by Commissioner Rahman, supported by Commissioner Long.
I don't know what it is though. I don't know.
And so Commissioner, I could just speak a little bit to this. We were hopeful that someone from Oxford was able to jump on, but with the length of time of the meeting, I think they had to jump off. Commissioner Spiz was not able to make this. Initially, this was going to be on the next Finance Committee, but because of certain deadlines to make sure that the board is promoted as a sponsor for all three of the events that are described, they wanted to, or we needed to get this before you today. So I certainly could answer, any questions or direct them to Commissioner Spiz and get them answered prior to full board.
Okay. The only thing I would say is, I hope that all of these events that we're giving special project money to have visible branding at the event, the big green tree, Oakland County, even maybe the name of the commissioner, if possible. But I really think branding is important. Part of the purpose of these special projects is to show that Oakland County is supporting all of the communities. And I don't wanna be handing money to communities and not having our participation being visible, okay?
And just to, piggyback off that, this is one of those great submissions that was pretty detailed. So there is also a flyer attached, and you'll see for our dollar amount, we are getting very visible signs, a certain amount of, tickets and things like that. And obviously Andrea in our office is great at making sure all of that happens, and we're holding the vendors accountable. And then we're starting even more closely to work with Sarah and our communications team to make sure that we're promoting the events on our social media and things like that. So certainly hearing what you're saying, and we'll make sure it's implemented.
Okay, good.
No, but I don't see Oakland.
Commissioner Smith Charles?
Yeah, I'm unhappy that the commissioner isn't here to speak on it. I feel like that's just like a baseline. But I also see that there are 8 carnival wristbands. And I wanna make sure that those wristbands are handed out appropriately, as well as those t-shirts. That's all I got.
Okay. Okay, if there's no other comments, let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
We'll go on.
You want a
Nothing too
t-shirt that's
spinny.
got that all over the front of it? That's the logo you like?
That scene one?
Yeah.
Charlie
That's your
will give you
style,
2.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Ajay.
Charlie needs the tight one to
Markham?
show off
Yes.
his muscles.
Cavell?
That's right. Yes.
You have 8 yeas, 0 nays?
Okay, motion carries.
Size small.
Next up,
That's
we
right.
have item 12D, sponsorship of the 15th Annual International Lyon Township Kite Festival. Moved by Commissioner Weipert, supported by Commissioner Rahman. All right.
Thank you. This is a truly international kite festival. It's putting
Charlie, invite Charlie.
Lyon Township and Oakland County on the
I'm
map.
busy.
It's a totally free event for the public. We pass out thousands of kites to kids. Partners, the township
Yeah,
always
he'll make sure
kicks in
county gets
10,000.
recognition, film.
The county's a sponsor. We always
He
use the
loves
county
everything.
parks trailer, and now
loves
that's actually a
everything.
fee for that. So this sponsorship helps us offset some of the costs. And it's totally community, totally
A lot of people
sponsorship.
go to that.
based.
It's really grassroots.
Yes.
It is,
Really?
yeah.
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 I know Commissioner Rahman's coming, Commissioner
Yeah.
Markham come out. It's-
I have not.
It involves all the
I know a lot of people
nonprofits,
go on this.
Rotary, Kiwanis, the
Like it.
To which
EDA.
Commissioner, the one time I went, I watched Commissioner Weipert go from the Lions tent to the Rotary tent to he belongs to all
I
of the
know.
organizations.
He does.
And while I was there, he was carrying out the trash as well, so.
Yeah.
I'm telling
Yeah,
you, it's a beautiful
He does like
It's
the
a fun-
Commissioner Ryan.
I just wanted to mention, to me, this is the epitome of what the special projects fund should be, because it's
Oh,
This is every
because-
year. What are you talking about?
Right,
All
but
right.
it's, but listen, but the thing is, it's Phil and it's
This is opinion.
$5,000 once a year.
Yeah.
I've only been here for a year.
Oh, but when it's
Yeah.
Mike and it's 40, but it's every
No,
year?
but
Come
listen,
on.
this is the only thing he's ever asked for, and it's $5,000,
That's
and I
the
mean,
only
you
thing
can
Mike
see
asked
how
for.
well connected he is.
There's other stuff.
Yeah, I'm about to say.
It's all part of the conversation, right? that we're
That's
gonna
all I
have
was
in the
getting at.
future.
I'm not
Okay,
discriminating
let's
against
finish.
kids
Right
yet.
now.
I'm just saying,
Right.
it's,
Yeah,
Me too. I
we
gotta
don't
get
wanna
on
see
my
Mission
toes.
Creek where these go
Right,
from being
right.
5,000 to 10 to 40 to
Yeah.
80.
right.
This is true sponsorship.
Right. Right. Okay, anybody else have any questions or comments? Let's prompt the vote.
Say go fly a kite. Go fly. Go fly a kite. Used to be. They just get caught in trees.
Cavell?
Yes.
Mine did all that.
Motion carries. Last item
It's a
under
big open field.
board recommendations is item 12E, sponsorship of the Pontiac Meals on Wheels
Oh, this is one I
Foundation's
like.
Blues in the Streets event.
So,
Moved by Commissioner Powell,
I'll
supported by
support it.
Commissioner
I love
Long.
Meals on Wheels.
So this came before me in like a urgency type of situation. Usually this is self-funded with private partners and some of the other governmental entities and nonprofit organizations all come together to support this. But this year, one of the major private donors couldn't come forward. So I have attended this event. This is an amazing event that our senior population attends and enjoys. And I just thought that I would bring it forth to see if I can get support for them. And it is a one-time. And again, like I stated, it was more of an emergency type situation for them to carry along for this year. So, that's all I have. You have any questions for me?
I have a question. So the project budget says the event date is February 23rd,
Oh,
2024.
no. It is changed to
June
it's in
29th.
June 29th. I'm sorry, they
Further
changed
down
it.
the-
Yeah, it's that we just never corrected that. Sorry about that, no.
Okay.
It's June 29th. It's a summer event.
And the request
Oh, and
is
the
for $10,000, right?
And just for clarity, because that was a good point, Commissioner Markham, what you're referencing is the attachment that they submitted initially. If you do look at the board item summary sheet, though, we have updated that correct
Oh,
date.
okay.
No, this, so that way commissioners know.
All right.
I didn't used to be ADD, I am now, I think.
And the request is for $10,000 of their $19,500.
Yes.
Okay,
I don't know how I sound like 7 hours.
just for
college
clarification.
classes.
Okay, anybody have any more questions or comments? Seeing none, let's prompt the vote.
I guess you get a walk between college classes, you walk on campus.
While commissioners are voting, I just want to remind you that with the updated policy, all of these events, we are going to now have a
Yes.
small reporting mechanism that they'll be
Oh,
coming
yeah.
back to us
Gotta
to let
come
us
back.
know how successful the community
go.
impact and how
Yeah.
many people. So
Yeah, that's
you'll
good.
see that under receive and file in future meetings.
That's good.
Okay.
The VAs are almost.
Motion carries. We made it through the Board of Commissioner Special Projects
You didn't
recommendations.
think when you did A through.
Last item on the agenda today is our public
Right.
comment. Is there
Same
anybody
comments
here
with
that
the
cares to
traffic.
address the public at this time? From the public? Seeing none, I will close the second public comment. And is there any other business to come
I don't know,
before
I'm
this
shutting my
commission,
computer
this
off.
board today? Seeing none, I will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Looks like no rain.